Hello, good morning, everyone here in the room and also those connected online. And welcome back to day 2 of the AGMA-EMA multi-stakeholder workshop on shortages. We hope that you enjoyed yesterday's meeting, in particular session 1, and that we fulfilled the aim of the workshop, or one of its aims, which was to inform our stakeholders about the AGMA-EMA task force activities on medicine shortages and availability, as well as interface with other initiatives that are ongoing. We also had 3 parallel breakout sessions, one on immunoglobulins, another one on biosimilars, and the third one on veterinary medicines. Now we will hear from those 3 breakout sessions. We understand that they were all very exciting and a lot of interaction during these 3 breakout sessions. But we have here today the rapporteurs from these 3 breakout sessions that are going to get us through to the discussions in each of those breakout sessions. So we'll have for the rapporteur for session 2A, which was a session on immunoglobulins, we have Emilia Metelite, and she's a medicines and medical devices shortage officer at EMA. For session 2B, the rapporteur is Rosa González Quevedo, a scientific research officer also at EMA. And for the third breakout session on veterinary medicines, the rapporteur is Janos Kovacs, a scientific administrator working in the veterinary medicines division here at EMA. So without any delay, I will ask Emilia to start with the report back from the breakout session on immunoglobulins. So Emilia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning. Indeed, I will be reporting back on the breakout session focused on the supply and availability of immunoglobulins, and I will present the session objectives, presentations from the speakers, as well as the outcomes of the discussion. Next slide, please. So the aims of the session were to inform the public of the regulatory landscape and initiatives that have been undertaken in the EU member states and EEA countries so far, as well as plan for the future. In addition to that, the session was aimed to discuss and better understand the complex correlation between the plasma supply and supply of immunoglobulins. In this respect, sharing and integrating the perspective of patients and healthcare professionals, as well as industry, on the availability and supply of immunoglobulins and plasma collection was pivotal for the session. The last objective of the session was to facilitate and strengthen the interaction between the involved stakeholders of the supply chain. Next slide, please. During the session, EMA presented an overview of the immunoglobulin supply situation in the EU member states and EEA countries. In particular, the initiatives of the European Medicines Agency for monitoring the supply of plasma-derived medicinal products were presented. EMA presented the activities of the Medicine Shortages Single Point of Contact Working Party and its dedicated drafting group, which focuses on the supply and availability of immunoglobulins. In addition to that, EMA noted the exchanges of information with the European and international bodies, as well as noted the surveys undertaken. EMA presented the preliminary results of the survey to the Medicine Shortages POC Working Party and marketing authorization holders of centrally authorized medicinal products that aim to get an overview of the availability and shortage situation of immunoglobulins in the individual EU member states and EA countries, as well as to get an overview of the availability of stock level information, as well as the data on historical consumption and forecast demand. EMA noted that the number of countries impacted by the shortages of immunoglobulins is increasing, and further analysis related to the supply and demand, as well as shortage root causes and mitigating measures, will be performed. Nonetheless, the EMA noted that initiatives of the Medicine Shortages POC Working Party, as well as the regular interactions with the marketing authorization holders, will continue to take place. The European Commission presented the topic of EU legislation and policy on blood and blood components, in particular, a proposal for a regulation on standards of quality and safety for substances of human origin, abbreviated as SOHO, intended for human application. European Commission noted that the EU framework for safety and quality of substances of human origin is composed of three levels of requirements that are applicable for blood, tissues and cells, and organs, and are related to requirements for professionals, national competent authorities, and the European Commission. European Commission further presented the Commission's proposal for the SOHO regulation in relation to the aspects relevant for the discussion that took place yesterday, such as donor protection, voluntary and unpaid donation, and supply continuity. The Commission concluded that EU legislation can facilitate the supply and coherent actions across Europe. However, various actions across the supply chain, from donor to patient, and measures at a national level are required to ensure the supply and demand balance. Lastly, the European Blood Alliance and Italian National Blood Center presented the supply project that aims to strengthen the unpaid plasma collection capacity in Europe. European Blood Alliance emphasized that the goals of the supply project are related to the development of good practices by all project stakeholders and development of recommendations to strengthen and make unpaid plasma collection in Europe more resilient. As well, the goals are related to contribution to a more sustainable supply and increased access to essential plasma-derived medicinal products with mitigating action to avoid disruptions. European Blood Alliance noted the work packages to facilitate the project execution across the plasma value chain from donor to patient, and the Italian National Blood Center further presented the work package 4 of the supply project. The work package 4 aims to formulate recommendations for the development of a proposal of common EU policies aimed to support national and EU efforts to achieve a higher degree of strategic independence from non-EU sources in the collection of plasma and its fractionation in plasma-derived medicinal products. In this context, the Italian National Blood Center presented the preliminary outcomes of the survey to the competent authorities. Next slide, please. During the discussion, a number of issues were identified, such as an imbalance between the supply and demand of immunoglobulins, and the lack of continuous access to appropriate treatment for patients is resulting in severe consequences. Impact on patients' health, taking into consideration the existing guidelines, should be analyzed. Fragmented legal frameworks and policies for plasma and plasma-derived medicinal products at the member state level were discussed, as well as the imbalance of immunoglobulins derived from plasmapheresis and the whole blood collection procedures, and the consideration to increase plasma collection through the increase of plasmapheresis procedure, including increase in the number of plasma fractionation centers is needed. The participants also discussed the harmonization and streamlining production efficiency to increase yields for the supply of plasma-derived medicinal products. The need for timely and accurate supply forecasting data from industry and other stakeholders involved to allow regulators to take preparatory actions to prevent and mitigate potential and actual shortages were noted. In addition to this, the participants noted the need for further analysis on the root causes of the shortages, as well as further information and analysis is needed on the role of pricing and reimbursement of the products. Next slide, please. The participants reflected on certain actions that could be undertaken, and those include the support from the European Commission to the member states with financial actions and coordinated plans for plasma collection, investments to the public and private sector for plasma collection, production, and plasma development and product development, could be undertaken. The participants also noted the need for harmonization in different areas, for example, donation of whole blood or plasma, as well as donor deferrals. The participants also noted the regulatory flexibilities for plasma master files, mutual recognition agreement for GMP inspections, and new plasma collection centers. In addition to that, the participants agreed that the development of harmonized clinical recommendations to priorities indications could be an action to undertake. Lastly, a close collaboration between all stakeholders to ensure patient access to plasma-derived medicinal products, including immunoglobulins, was noted throughout the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily, for that very comprehensive update from breakout session on the immunoglobulin. So now I would like to give the floor to Rosa Quevedo for a report from the biosimilar breakout session that also took place yesterday. So Rosa, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. I hope you can hear me well. I will present you the outcome of the discussion. Next slide, please. On biosimilars and linking back to the objectives that we had initially for this session. The first one was to understand stakeholders' experiences with shortages of biological medicines, and this included biosimilars, and also try to gather views on whether the availability of biosimilar medicines could be a good way to prevent potential shortages of biologicals. A second important objective for this session was for our invited speakers to provide an overview of the work of the HMA Working Group on Biosimilars, and also explain the scientific position in the EU on interchangeability. And this was done by our three experts, Esa, Elena, and Stefan. And finally, we wanted to understand how the work that's been done by the European Medicines Agencies Network, including HMA and EMA, can prevent potential shortages of biologicals and at the same time increase the uptake of biosimilars. Next slide, please. So before the meeting, we ran a pre-meeting survey to really try to get an understanding from the session participants on what was their experience with the objectives, with some of the issues that we have captured in the objectives. And although we got a response only from around a quarter of participants, there were still some interesting observations, and I'll summarize for you because this is relevant then for what was discussed at the session. So around or short, about 50% of them expressed the need for having more information on biosimilars. Also, half of the respondents mentioned that they had experienced a shortage either of a biological or a biosimilar medicine. Regarding trust on the interchangeability, most of the respondents actually mentioned that they trusted these principles, whereas there was a small percentage, around 16%, who said they didn't trust the principle, and the reasons they gave for this were varied, but this included lack of comparative studies, and also, for example, the fact that when patients are switched to another biological medicine, patients need to be trained into how to use a new device, and that obviously has resource implications. And finally, when we asked participants on how, what was their perception on biosimilars as to whether they could be useful alternatives to prevent shortages of biologicals, a bit over 60% responded that indeed they could be useful alternatives. Next slide, please. So using this knowledge from this survey and also all the other issues that we had raised when we were starting to prepare the workshop, the discussion that took place yesterday was very lively, and I would say it touched upon many different areas relating to biosimilars and also, of course, of shortages. And we've tried to capture the discussion in this slide to give you the key points, a high level of what was discussed and agreed. So I think we can conclude that there is now an extensive scientific, regulatory, and clinical experience with biosimilars, and this includes safety and also prescriber-led switching. Stakeholders raised the need for more timely communication on all the regulatory science that is underpinning biosimilar development and approval, and also clinical use, for example, interchangeability. And this is needed to create trust, because trust really emerges as a key area in which we need to focus. Stakeholders also raise the need for consistent messaging across all the different participants in the healthcare system, from nurses to pharmacists to healthcare professionals, prescribers, etc. And this also revealed that it's important to adapt this messaging to the needs within the different therapeutic areas. It was highlighted that there are some concerns that arise when talking about interchangeability, and it's important to address these questions and concerns. And some of these touch, for example, upon off-label use of the biosimilar for indications that are only approved for the reference, or also the importance of patient consent. When discussing the lack of availability of biosimilars in different countries, then varied reasons were identified, and these go from either procurement or market forces or patent issues. And it was also pointed out that there is a different speed of access to biosimilars in the EU, and some of the solutions that were discussed was the need for member states to prepare and engage early with tenders. Another issue that came up is that the pipeline forecast is predicting that for some products there won't be biosimilar development. And it was highlighted that it's important to address the sustainability of biosimilar development. And one of the initiatives that was mentioned as a solution is the issue of global development. There were also HTA and payers participants, and based on their participation, the biosimilarity principle is supported. However, some hurdles were identified regarding the implementation of interchangeability. For example, there might be cases where there is a need for switching studies for devices, so injectable devices, to prove compatibility. It was also discussed that biosimilars, while they're different from generic medicines, when it comes to implementing them in clinical practice, it has to follow a similar approach. And finally, one of the issues discussed and also agreed is that in general, biosimilars can be useful to prevent shortages of biological medicines. So this is my last slide, and I hope this has captured well the discussion that happened yesterday. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Jose, for that very clear and also comprehensive update from the breakout session on biosimilars. So now I will give the floor to Janos Kovacs to give us a report from the breakout session on the medicines for veterinary use. So Janos, over to you.
Thank you, Monica. I will give a summary of the breakout session with the focus on the outcome. Next slide, please. So this meeting was the first multi-stakeholder discussion in the array of shortages and availability issues regarding veterinary medicinal products. So we had presentations from the veterinarians' perspective, the industry associations also gave presentations, and two national competent authority also presented their experience. Next slide, please. Before the discussions, we set some objectives. The first, we wanted to define the difference between the lack of availability and the shortages of the veterinary medicinal products, and try to find the root causes for these problems. And we also wanted to have some specific discussion on specific issues, for example, products on small markets, products for minor species. And we also tried to find an answer to the question whether the new regulation on the veterinary side, the regulation 2019/6, support the availability of VMPs. And finally, we wanted to identify some actions that are needed to improve the situation, and actions that should be avoided that might worsen the current situation. Next slide, please. So throughout the discussion, we took into account the following difference between the lack of availability and the shortage, which is also reflected in the terms of reference of the availability task force. So we saw that the lack of availability is the lack of products that are authorized but are not marketed or no longer marketed, and the shortage when the products authorized and marketed, but there is a problem in the supply chain which directly prevent the availability of the products. Next slide, please. In the new regulation, we found two articles which give some support for the availability issues for VMPs. The first one is Article 58, which refers to the marketing authorization holders, and it gives the responsibility for them for the continued supplies, appropriate and continued supplies of veterinary medicinal products. And there is another article in the regulation which gives the same responsibility for the wholesale distributors. And these are new articles. These articles were not in the previous veterinary directive. But still, there is no legal basis for reporting on shortages. Next slide, please. And finally, I would like to summarize the outcome of the discussions. So it was agreed that the veterinarians experience shortage issues to an extent which is currently unknown. And it seems to be that mainly vaccines and antibiotics are affected. It was agreed that the topic needs further investigation on a multi-stakeholder level to quantify the actual problem, because for the veterinarians, the main issue that they get the product or it is not possible to get the product. They don't really care whether there is a availability issue behind or a shortage. And this needs to be also find out what extent is the problem is a shortage issue or an availability issue. We also agreed that it would be useful to develop a list of critical VMPs, but it was noted that the criticality may differ in member states. The rabies vaccine was raised as an example, which is critical in some member states, but other member states where the disease is not there, it's not critical because they only need this vaccine when the owners would like to travel with their dogs to other countries. And we also had examples from member states on the system on reporting of shortages. France has the most developed system. But in France, there is a legal basis for reporting of shortages. They even propose alternatives on their web page. But we also see another example when there is no legal basis and reporting is on a voluntary basis, and this system does not really deliver useful data. One of the biggest achievements of the new regulation is the Union Product Database, and it was considered that this database could be developed further to help monitoring shortages, because currently in this system availability status should be included and sales data, but it needs to be further developed, and it was also noted that it cannot be done in the near future, just to avoid setting up a separate system for this. Next slide, please. It was also agreed that the veterinary medicinal products should be regarded as essential goods like the human products, and the same level of regulatory flexibility should apply for the veterinary medicines as well. For example, the green lines. It was also agreed to look into the missing quantitative data and the root cause regarding shortages for vaccines and antibiotics. And finally, regarding the guidances, there are some guidance that are currently available, which are human and which are also covered the veterinary side, but it was agreed that they can be only considered for the veterinary side when we know the full scale of the problem on this side. And due to the fact that the industry is very busy with the implementing of the new regulation, it was noted that additional guidance might even worsen the situation. So for now, no additional guidance was deemed necessary. And this is my last slide, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Janos. So we've now had the report from the 3 breakout sessions. Of course, you were not able to attend them all, none of us, but we have the recordings for the 3 sessions, and they will be published together with the presentations from this breakout session. So there will be an opportunity for us to actually follow these breakout sessions. But I think these reports have shown that 3 very different topics, but all very important.